Hi, welcome to my presentation. My name is Fay Shin. I'm a professor at the California State University, Long Beach in the Department of Teacher Education. I'm going to talk a little bit about my own experiences teaching English language learners in middle school and elementary school, and I will also share just a little bit of research to talk about it. I'm going to share my PowerPoint with you. Okay. The title The title of my presentation is Engaging and Effective Writing Instructional Strategies for English Learners. It's going to be an abbreviated version. It's just a short version of my usual presentation. Okay, what the research says about teaching English learners and writing, there's just a little bit that I will briefly go over. One by Louise Moll, what he talks about educators need to build on and develop students' existing funds of knowledge. I think that's very important to start from what the students know, and that the research does support the promotion of students' writing abilities in first and second languages. This is the basis of why I strongly believe in the dialogue journals, and of course its power of choice. This is the main emphasis, that students get to choose their own topics to write about. They definitely benefit from the feedback, and the main strategy I'm going to talk about is dialogue journals. Okay, what are dialogue journals? They are interactive. Students write about a topic or anything they want to, and the teacher responds to their writing. This is a difference from just journal writing. The teacher is actually responding, and this makes a difference. They encourage students to write freely. Students' writing is never corrected. We'll talk about that. Teacher always responds to their writing, modeling the correct grammar or spelling if needed. It should be fun and interesting, can be given points or credit just for writing, and it doesn't matter if their writing is grammatically wrong or misspelled. It's just that you give credit just for writing. Students can draw pictures, but writing is always encouraged. Students can write in any language, but English is encouraged if that's the goal of the class, and should be required depending on English language proficiency level. And this, I want to note, is for an English ELD class or for English learners. Dialogue journals benefit children because, number one, students receive an individual reply from their teacher. I never would have realized how important this was until I had a student. Her name was Fay Shin. She was actually somebody I was tutoring when I was in graduate school at USC. I would go to her house a couple times a week because her parents had hired me to tutor her, private tutoring. She had come from Korea. She was in the United States only for about 3 months, and she's in the 3rd grade learning English. Her elementary school teacher is the one who did dialogue journals in our own classroom. And every Wednesday, I still remember Fay would give me the book. I would read what the teacher wrote to her in the journal. And it would just be 1 or 2 short, simple sentences, something like, I remember one entry, I would read it. It said, "Dear Fay, I love having you in class. I hope you like this school." This little girl, Fay, had the biggest smile on her face when I would read that entry to her, and she would read those 2 sentences over and over again. She just cherished that dialogue journal. She loved it, and if you think about it, why do you think she just loved reading those 2 sentences? It's because that was a one time. She felt like the teacher was writing personally to her. She felt it was that personal message to her. And if I had not seen how happy that made this little girl, I never would have done this in my own classroom. When I taught 6th and 7th graders, I had 150 students in LA Unified, but it was because of Fay I started to do this in my own classroom, and it was because of the power I saw that the teacher had in her replies to her, this little girl. Another reason, students experiment with writing in English or second language in a meaningful context. This is so important for English learners. Elena is the one who I want to, she was a girl, she's 12 years old in my 7th grade classroom. She had just come from Russia. It was October. I still remember the month. It was October. It was her 3rd day in the United States. She stood there in my classroom. She looked terrified. I don't blame her. And her cousin was there to help me translate just for that first day. And we did it was a day when we were doing dialogue journals. So I gave her a journal, and I told her cousin to tell her to please just write whatever she wants. She can write it in her native language, which was Russian. And I will never forget, she wrote 5 pages in Russian. I have no idea what she was writing, probably something like, what am I doing here? I don't like this place. I have no idea. But all I remember is I wrote back to her. I wrote, Dear Elena, your writing is beautiful. I wish I could read it. I hope you like it here in the United States. The next week, she wrote another 4 or 5 pages in Russian, and I still responded. The next week, it was the third week, and I will never forget, she wrote, Friday, I go Disneyland. I was so excited. I realized she knew some English. She had some writing skills, and she was just trying to write what she knew. So this was my opportunity to write back to her. I wrote, Dear Elena, I love Disneyland. Did you have fun? What was your favorite ride? Ever since then, each week she wrote a little bit more, from October until June. You can see her writing develop. It was amazing. I wish I'd kept her journal. It was, for me, a way to communicate with her. She just took her chances. She knew I would never correct her writing. I modeled the correct writing. And so that was one connection we made. The next one is building communication skills. This is probably one of the best reasons that I hear teachers and students telling me that the dialogue journals was because when you build, you get to know your students. They talk about their interests. You have a rapport with them. And a good example is this one student I had, his name was Sal. He was a 7th grader. Now, he was one of those kids that, 7th grade, they're kind of in that transition mode. He's still a kid, but he was one of those kids that was always getting in trouble. He was a big kid. Think about this, tough kid, get in trouble, got into fights occasionally, always in the principal's office. But in my classroom, he was amazing. I had no problems whatsoever with him. And that's because this one time I started this topic where it was, I would have topics like, who's your favorite singer? So I remember what he wrote. He wrote, my favorite singer is Kurt Cobain from Nirvana. And he went on and on about Nirvana and Kurt Cobain. I still remember reading, it was a Monday evening. And so I wrote back to him and I said, Dear Saul, Nirvana and Kurt Cobain, they're pretty good. But, I really like Madonna. So I went on and on about Madonna. So for the next 2 weeks, we had a Madonna, Kurt Cobain exchange. One day he came to my classroom, it was during recess, and I was grading papers. And I remember he came in and he's like, Miss Shin. I said, hi, Saul. And I remember what he said. He said, he took out the CD and he said, I want you to take this home and listen to it. So it was, some of you may remember the Nirvana CD, It Smells Like Teen Spirit. There's a baby floating. That's when we had CDs back then. And I remember saying, okay, Sal, I'll do that. And like a good teacher, I took it home and I listened to it. And guess what? I really actually liked it. So the next day I gave him back his CD and I said, Sal, I really liked it, but now it's my turn. What do you think I did? I gave him my Madonna CD. And ever since then, we just, like I said, he was amazing in my class. I will never forget this one day he was in the middle of the classroom. I was teaching, I was talking, and some boys behind him were talking. He turned around and he was like, quiet down, Miss Shin's talking. The whole class, even myself, we were all stunned and speechless. So since then, I called him the enforcer. He was just amazing in my class. He actually was doing his work and the rapport. It was because of communication skills, like I said. I just really got to know him. He got to know me. And this is what he wrote in June, his very last entry. And I copied it because I loved it so much. It meant so much to me. He wrote, to Miss Shin, I hope that your summer is a very good and happy summer. I remember you because of all the ways you helped me and all the pleasant ways you treated me. I have to say, you're a very amused person. And if I don't get to see you again anytime, you'll be in my heart. Remember, you took part of my life. I'll miss you throughout the summer. And remember Kurt Cobain. Remember Nirvana, your student and friend, Saul Daniel Munoz Castillo. P.S. Lots of love and happiness. That just really touched my heart. It's one of those things you don't realize how much it means. I think it meant a lot to him, my writings, and I know what he wrote to me, especially in the last entry, was just amazing. Dialogue journals benefit children because also you build authentic literacy skills. Students choose their own topics. They benefit teachers because, number one, this is what the students didn't realize, it provides us with a weekly developmental record of their writing. It models writing in authentic context, helps children make that connection between oral and written language, and you learn about the child and his or her interests. What I said, once again, one of the best things about it. I just love the fact that it was authentic writing, and it really got the students to write and to learn to love writing again. This is another example I want to share with you. It's a third grade student who is actually, he was in Long Beach, and this is what he wrote to one of my students. When I grow up, I am going to be a cop. I want to be a cop because cops get to arrest people and eat donuts. Donuts are my favorite things to eat. I enjoy them all the time. Well, not all the time. It depends which one it is. It's amazing. You get some really funny, nice entries that they have, just amusing, and you get to kind of see what they think. Another one, the first grader, he wrote, if I had $1 million, I would buy a lot of SpongeBobs. And it's cute. They get to draw, and he got to draw on this. And that little cat, it's a sticker. The students, even my 7th graders, they love to have a sticker at the end of every entry, and then of course we would write back, but just to see what this little boy would do. Another one wrote, dear Miss Kang, is for another student, if I had $1,000, I will buy you a school and you can be a teacher. That warmed my heart. He wanted to buy his the teacher candidate a school, and then he said, I will buy you or my family presents, and if there's more money left, I will take my dad to the hospital. So it was kind of, I get a lot of, I would see so many of the entries where they would spend it on paying the electric bill. They would buy their mom a car or their dad a car. So it's heartwarming to see their responses. This was from a 5-year-old girl. She's in kindergarten. She was just learning to read and write. She was not reading yet at the time, but she did do a dialogue journal. And I will tell you, this is from my daughter, Lauren, when she was 5 years old. We went to the Los Angeles Museum of Natural History Museum. And when we came home, I started the dialogue journal with her. And I was just amazed. She just went immediately to the journal and she wrote about her day. She said, and for those of you who can read the writing, just follow along with me. This is what she wrote. I went to the museum. There was dinosaurs in the museum. We digged for dinosaur bones and we ate cookies, chocolate chip cookies. I think that's actually pretty good for a 5-year-old. Like I said, she was not one of those advanced kids that was reading when she was in kindergarten. So what I did is I wrote these words next to her and I asked her, I said, Lauren, can you read these words for me? And she looked at the words and she said, went, museum, there was, dinosaur, digged, bones, cookies, chocolate. If it was in a book, I don't know if she would have been able to read them, but there was a reason why she could read this now. It's because it was within context. She read every single word with no problem. And that's what was amazing. That's what it's about. That this is what she wrote. It was about an event. She wrote it there, and I had them next to her, and she was able to read through them. Doing a parent-child dialogue journal is amazing. I got this idea from a teacher, a student of mine, who would assign homework for their parents, and they would have to do a weekly dialogue journal. And I did this with my own daughters. It was amazing, the things that they would write and we would share. Dialogue journals as a tool for writing instruction for English language learners. Definitely for English learners. I gave you the example of Hejun and of Elena, but number one, they need more guidance and more collaborative writing opportunities. English learners need to have an opportunity to feel free to write and express themselves without their writing being corrected. When I say this, we want to be that good teacher. We want to correct their writing. We want to show them, but this is the time where we don't. We let them just free write. You will model back the writing process, writer's workshop, composing process, where we do the draft, edit, revise, publish. That's a separate component of writing instruction. I'm all for the writing process. I'm all for editing, revising, but not for this time. And it's very important. One of the things, let me go back to this. I want to share with you something that really validated what I always believed in. We see the research shows it, but once again, it's always the students that really validate this. In one of my classes, I teach a course called Teaching Reading and Writing in the Secondary Classroom. These are students who are going to be future chemistry, PE teachers, math teachers, and they have to sit through my classroom because we try to emphasize how all teachers are teachers of reading and writing. So one of the first things I do is I have them write what we call a literacy history. And the big question is, how do you share your experiences of how you learn to read and write? So they have to think back, how did they learn to read and write? This is what a student in my class, before I talked about dialogue journals, this is pretty much the first week of class that they had to do this assignment. And he shared with me his experience learning to read and write in English because he came from Vietnam in the 3rd grade and he was an English language learner. And this is what he shared with, this is what he wrote before I talked about dialogue journals. He wrote, Vietnamese was my first language and it was tough trying to learn English. An instrumental person that helped develop my literacy is my 6th grade teacher, Mr. Jones. Although I was only his student for a year, we built a friendship that grew outside the classroom. He became a caring friend and a person I deeply admired. He helped me with my reading and writing abilities through the process of daily journal assignments. We had to write in our journal every day after lunchtime for approximately 10 minutes. Mr. Jones allowed us to free write about anything that we felt a desire for. I would write about what happened outside of school the previous day. Then Mr. Jones would read our entries and comment on them. Usually he replied with thoughtful feedback and encouragement. This gave me the impression that he really did care about his students because some of my early grade teachers never responded to our writings. I really enjoyed that journal assignment because it allowed me to express my feelings and thoughts without having any restrictions or barriers. I often found myself not having enough time to write everything that I wanted to put on paper. I was also excited to see how Mr. Jones would respond to my entry each day. This assignment improved my literacy skills because I was eager to read and write. For the first time in my childhood, I wanted to read and write more than hanging out with my friends. This is from Bobby Wynn. He's a single subject credential student in Long Beach, California, and he validated what I always knew, and it's just nice to hear somebody talk about it. Was the dialogue journals that really was the key, and it was the correspondence and the responses. So some tips about doing the dialogue journals in your own classroom. Number 1, purchase or make journals. Spiral notebooks or composition books are recommended, or you can make your own. But I say do more than just staple some paper. Make it nice. Allow the students to decorate their journals. This is something that's going to be for them to keep. Each week, give students a topic to write about. However, always let them write about anything they want. If they don't like your topic, they can free write anything they want to write about. Make sure they date each entry and respond. You need to respond to each entry. This is so important that they get feedback from you, because otherwise they don't see that purpose. They're anxious to hear what you write to them. Some recommendations for using dialogue journals: provide a weekly topic, and here's some suggestions like tell me about your family. What's your favorite place to go? Favorite actor? Favorite movie? What would you do or change if you were the principal of this school? If you won the lottery, what would you do with the money? If you were a superhero, this one's my favorite, what magic powers would you have? If you became invisible, what would you do? So there are lots of topics. Have them write, and they usually will write about the topic that you put up there. Encourage students to write about anything they want to. Let them know they do not need to write about the topic you give them. Do not, once again, I emphasize, do not correct their writing. We're teachers. We want to we want to help our students. We want to correct it, but there's a time and place for that. Give them a thoughtful reply and model the correct grammar and spelling. So for instance, if a student writes, I like baseball, you can reply, I also like to play baseball, and you are going to model that correct spelling and the grammar. Do not let the students take the journals home. You want to keep them at school. If they want to write more, which a lot of them will, give them paper, have them write it on a separate sheet of paper, and then they can staple in the journals the next time they see you, so the next time they're in class. Bottom line, the journal writing, I would always make it fun. Students, this was a requirement in my class. I did this also for my teacher candidates. It was an assignment, by far one of their favorite assignments that they would do and work on with their students. The students are always so excited about what the teacher is going to respond back. Book publishing and the writing process, that's another topic for another presentation. Thank you very much for sitting in this. This is just an example. I really believe in book publishing. That's the writing process, where they go through that writing process, but you need to publish it. And there are so many examples of when the students feel like they are writers and authors. And one of the main reasons, once again, my own experience, I'll never forget my 2nd grade teacher. I went to school in Los Angeles, K through 12. It was just my 2nd grade teacher that published my writing. She put it into a book, and it was a short little story about my puppy, my dog named Skippy. And just, I just remember being excited because to see my writing, she typed it up, she bound it, she let me color my pictures just like the student here, and it was me being the author. And that's why I firmly believe that we need to do this for all of our students. I feel like I don't see us, the teachers doing this enough in the classroom. I know it's a lot of work, but definitely worth it. Here's just some of the references that I used when I talk about a little bit about the research, my own experiences. And I want to say thank you very much for attending my brief presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free, my email is up there at the beginning, to email me any comments or feedback. And once again, thank you very much and stay safe.